Hooked on Sunshine. I took a couple minutes before this and did just a really short meditation. Because sometimes when I talk about fathers, I've got to be in a really good place. It's super easy to blame fathers, to be mad at them, to blame them for where your life has ended up at, to look back at your past history and things like that. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about how to let go of some of that stuff. And if you're in a divorced family, how to handle Father's Day in a mature and honorable way. So that's what we're talking about today. So first, let's just talk about Father's Day for you. And I know one of the things for me that probably made me be respectful of Father's Day is the fact that my father kind of abandoned us when I was a kid. And so it took me, I chased him around. I always tried to have a relationship with him. My dad was an addict and kind of a womanizer. So the things that were important to him weren't his children. He had 4 children. I've got 3 brothers. And ultimately, one of 2 things. One is that my father pretty much never got over my mother. So when my mom moved on and remarried, it broke my father's heart. Secondarily is that my mom and dad got along so poorly that when he would come to visit, it would just be this explosion of emotions and lots of just torment between the 2 of them. And ultimately, my dad stopped coming around. Now, most of that was his choice. He was an adult. He could have overcome a lot of those things. He chose not to. And that's where we're at today. I have always tried to have a relationship with my dad. And so I feel really blessed that here about 2 years ago, I did get in contact with my dad. He's been sober for 10 years. And we've been really on a journey of getting to know one another. There's been a lot of healing. But you know, I really had healing well before that. I actually went to see my dad because I'd been having dreams that he died. And I had tried multiple times through the years. I'm almost 50 years old. So I had tried multiple times through the years to have that contact. And ultimately realized that I was never going to have from my dad what I needed. And that I was just going to have to be okay with that. And years and years and years ago, I was okay with that. I really put mentors in my life that filled some of that spot for me. Nothing ever completely fills. You know, I was a real daddy's girl, so nothing ever really fills that completely. But I just stopped blaming him. I was at where I was at in my life. I wasn't choosing men anymore based off of my hurt or pain or abandonment. I wasn't panicked every time a man left. I didn't put myself in places to be hurt. And sometimes that is a process. And we're going to do a whole series on being well so that you can be well for your spouse and for your life in general. But today we're going to talk specifically about dealing with Father's Day during a divorce. I had a question yesterday about advice for a divorce. And, you know, I like that I can look back on my divorce and know that I was as graceful as possible. There were times where I didn't do everything right, but was ultimately what was always in my heart is what is best for my children. My children needed relationship with their dad. Our marriage ended because of domestic violence and because of some other things. And ultimately, we worked through a lot of things so that my children could have relationship with their dad. Now, we didn't do all of those things correctly, but in my heart, I could look back on things and know that I gave 110% to try to make sure that my kids had what they needed. So this is what I'll say about handling Father's Day or Mother's Day. This could probably go both ways when you are through a divorce. First of all, encourage your kids to contact their father that day. Quit with this garbage about always trying to oh, they don't love him, they don't need him, trying to throw your new husband into their face, things like that. I have a stepdad. I love him with all my heart. He never makes me choose, which I appreciate. I can love both men. I have enough in my heart to love my dad and to love my stepdad, who I also call dad. with all of my heart. Um, I didn't need anybody to encourage that, to try to see if they could take his place, any of those things. You know, who your father is and is who you're born with, and you can't change that. Some of us have relationship with that man and some of us don't. For those of you going through divorce where that man wants relationship with those children and those children want relationship with him, these are the things I encourage. First thing, don't talk crap about their dad. Their dad is their dad. It's a makeup of who they are as a person as well. Genetically, they are who that person is. So I know that I failed in this area in some ways. I had some concerns about some things that got passed down from generation to generation to my children. So we did talk openly about a lot of things that I hoped that they would overcome, that their dad was not able to overcome. But I didn't just sit around and talk crap about him all the time. I let them love him openly. I know a lot of families who go and buy a Father's Day gift for their child to give away. I actually didn't do that, and that's because he had a lot of people in his life that would take the kids to go and do that. So the gift doesn't need to come from me. His new wife and I didn't do super well. And she always felt really insecure and jealous around me. So when I would send something, like, I know him really well, and so if I would do something special or sweet that I knew would really mean a lot to him, she would just really blow out. So I didn't continue doing that because of my respect for what I really wanted them to have for that day. So no game playing. I knew that they were going to take my kids somewhere to go pick out something special, a card or whatever. Now my kids have drawn pictures and taken stuff from school and things like that. Those things are totally appropriate. But make a window for your kids to either spend time with their dad that day, make a window for them to call their dad that day. Really encourage them, especially on fathers who aren't really good communicators. My new husband, not an awesome communicator. If you're one-on-one with him in person, he is amazing. If you're across the country, you're going to get like a 2-minute phone call, because that's just who he is. And it doesn't matter if you're his wife, his dad, his daughters, his son. It doesn't matter. That is who he is. And so ultimately, if you want time with him, you have to go be there in person. And so, like even this year, I'm trying to create some opportunity. He's actually working on Father's Day. So I'm trying to create an opportunity the following weekend for his daughters to come and join us for dinner, because they may call him tonight, which would be wonderful. He's working a night shift and they may call and say Happy Father's Day, and it'll mean a lot to him. So that'll be wonderful. But I know him really well, and I know that we need to create time, one-on-one time, because that's what he needs to make that connection. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to honor things. And when your kids are younger in particular, it's really easy to be like, oh, it's my weekend. It's my weekend, so you can't have the kids. Quit being a jackass about those kinds of things. You're trying to ultimately steal from him, but who you're stealing from is from your children. Stop stealing from your children. This is their dad, their Father's Day, their memories with him, their time to celebrate who he is. Quit being full of resentment and hate, and maybe court is going really badly, and so you're really in a mode of like, I want to not let him get what he wants, and all of those things. Okay, I understand how all those feelings and emotions can be. To some extent, you're going to have to be bigger than all of those things, and it just really doesn't matter what he's doing, within reason. There are some situations where men are so out of line that you can't go there, but I know a lot of women who use that as their excuse to not let their children see their dad. What I'm saying to you is, don't play that game. Please don't play that game. Please really encourage them to love their dad, to go spend time with their dad, to make a plan, drive halfway, drive all the way, do whatever that you can, because it's so important for them to have time with their father. It's very, very important. I like to tell stories, so my kids were raised with lots of like stories about their dad that I still felt fondly about, and stories that I knew that they would be in and that they would just love. And those types of things are very important to kids. Telling them something about a trait that they have that's like their dad that you adore. My kids, my daughter in particular, she got her dad's smile. I mean, it just, he had the most beautiful teeth and she got his smile. And so, you know, like you just pick those times. My son, storyteller, just like his dad, has the same laugh, throws his head back, the whole 9 yards. Of course, when we very first divorced, it was really hard to talk about that as an asset. Because just the thought of my ex-husband, all the hurt, all the pain, all the DV that we had went through, all the emotional, really torment that we had gone through, it made me really almost hate him during a time. When my heart healed, I could really see those traits in my kids and really love those traits in my kids. Like, I adore my children. There are things about my ex-husband that I still really love and appreciate about him, and that I'm excited that the two of us created a child that is as wonderful as our children are. And so being able to point those traits out in them and be like, oh, this is something that you do that's like your dad, and it's very special and very unique. If you're not in a healed place to do that, that's okay. Just don't go the opposite way. Don't be negative. Don't just talk crap about them. Don't say, oh my God, your dad is just like that. And I know that that can be really tempting. So the last thing is that I pray for their father. So through the years, you know, we've had a lot of ups and downs, and my kids had a lot of healing to do because of who he chose as his spouse and kind of how they treated my children. And also just the healing process of the divorce, being separated from him or I. My daughter went through a real phase of really struggling for her confidence and her self-worth. And she got into a lot of situations, especially as a young person, that she had to heal from. I had to participate in that, and so did her dad, as far as her getting well. So the one thing that I've done for many, many years, and I'll continue, because even now, and my kids are raised, and they're going to have, you know, my daughter has 2 right now, children of her own. My kids have stepchildren. So they're playing that role of a parent. And so he is a granddad to 2 children. So I pray for him. I pray that there is healing inside of his heart in those areas that were making him broken, which were causing the issues that we had within our marriage. I pray that he's a good husband. I pray that he's a good father. I pray that my kids feel loved. I pray that they feel confident and that they feel secure. I pray that they actually feel the safest and the most loved when they're around he or I. And so that's very, very important. With my husband, I pray for him as well. And what I pray, because we actually had more parent alienation on our end, his ex-wife really struggled that he remarried and loved again and all of those things. He is a man that pulls away when he feels rejected, when he feels hurt. So it used to just be like every single weekend, like clockwork, he did everything he could do to get to his kids. Then she made it hard, made it impossible for him to see them. Then she tried to put somebody in place that would be their dad, quote unquote dad, instead of him. And I had to step back because the kids used me as part of ammunition in that situation. But ultimately, one of the things that I really pray for both sides, one is that his kids, and he has 3, that they'll see him for the man he truly is, that he just loves and adores them. He's paid a god-awful amount of child support. He has gone above and beyond to try to be a part of their life. And, you know, those things, I mean, especially, you know, we lived far away. He works some ridiculous, crazy hours. And it's always like his main thing to try to figure out, like, when are the kids going to get to come see me again? When can I get down? We live in Alaska. They live in the lower 48. It's hard. It takes a lot of work. And there was a lot of hurt feelings. So my prayer is first that his communication and that his skills to tell them how much he loves them, how much they mean to him, that those skills will grow and be better. And then in return, that his children will understand who he is as a father, why he's pulled away, why that rejection and that constant fight and that constant uproar it just was too toxic. And so we did have to step back. I'm really grateful that they actually do have a man in their life that he does seem kind and good. So there wasn't, it's not like they were held against us and then was with somebody that was terrible. But sometimes it's really hard to look at those circumstances and to not want to fight back, to not want to win. This is not about winning. This is about your children and that man having the best memories that they can possibly have on a special day. I do the same thing for birthdays, Christmas, any kind of major holiday for them with their dad. And I just really, really pray that one day they're able to really look back and see how hard he worked, how much he wanted to provide for them, how that was first and foremost in his mind, and that providing financially was his way of loving, since a lot of that alienation took place and he was so separated from them. As everybody is getting older, they're doing so much better about creating those relationships for themselves. But those things take time. They really do. They take some time. So my thoughts are with you. I know that Father's Day can be hard. It can be particularly hard when your heart is broken, when you've lost your dad and there's some grief, when your dad chooses not to be there and he can be. When you are fresh going through a divorce, it is the most painful time to be separated from your father. Keep in mind, don't listen to all the sound around you. Know in your heart who your dad is, how much he cared for you. Maybe you didn't get along. Maybe there was other circumstances that came up that made loving your dad hard. Some of you have had even some major traumas with your dad. So maybe you're not celebrating your actual father today. Maybe you're celebrating somebody who mentored you and who is like a father today. And that's okay too. So I just wish you my very best and hope that on this Father's Day, you fill this day full of love for you within your heart. I personally am going to go make dinner for my stepdad, and I'm going to call my dad, who's a few hours away, and I'm going to see him in about 10 days and celebrate with him when I see him. So no more guilt. I don't feed into any of that. I don't have to be any one particular place. It's okay for me to love both people. It's okay for me to spread my heart out. Be well today. Be 100% well so that you can be well for your dad, for your children, for your spouse, for your husband, for your stepchildren, and for the stepmoms that are out there. I know that this can be hard. It can be hard when your kids are, you're really letting go and letting your heart really let them love who they need to love. I know that sometimes that adult anger, you want them sometimes to take on that offense as well. Let that all go. That's not their offense. They weren't the ones that married them. They weren't the ones that had any of those offenses. That is between you and your ex-partner only. And so from a mom, from a stepmom's point of view, let everybody love who they need to love. Quit feeling like you need to get in the middle of that. Quit feeling like you need to fix any of it. Quit feeling like you need to manipulate any of it. I know that that can be really hard. Let people be what they need to be. Let your children love their father. Let your stepchildren love their father. And if you have a stepfather and fathers of your own, love them. This is Hooked on Sunshine, just a quick little synopsis today of how I feel about Father's Day during a divorce. May God bless you. Sending love.